We're doing another Sanur sessions and we've got a few things to get through today. Let's get stuck in. The big news today is actually about the weather. I'll get to that in detail in the weather section, but needless to say, the weather over the past, week has been absolutely atrocious. And I'll go into a little bit of detail about that in the weather section. It's been bad, like really bad. The next bit of news we need to get into is the deck at La Playa. Now, you'll know that I think it was over Christmas period, the deck at La Playa down on the beach there fell into the ocean. It just collapsed totally dangerous, and it hadn't been rebuilt. Well, it hasn't been rebuilt for a couple of months now, I think it is, or 6 weeks. It's been a long time, and people are complaining about, it looks unsightly and it looks disgusting and that sort of stuff. But I've got a bit of inside information. I won't say who it came from because I don't want to out anyone, but basically the story is that the owner was not allowed to rebuild that deck straight away because there were permit issues about being able to build on the sand and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of those bureaucratic things in Indonesia do take time. You need to have a bit of patience with bureaucracy in Indonesia. You can't just go and click your fingers and think that everything's going to be okay, because it just isn't. So what's happened is that over the past 6 weeks or so, there have been negotiations about what's going to happen next with that deck. And I've been told that the owner now has approval to build a new deck and extend it. I haven't been down there for like a week because the weather's been so bad, so I haven't actually seen it. But I would assume that if construction hasn't already occurred or started to occur, that it will be done pretty soon, because I've heard that approval's been given to build that deck again. Make it a little bit longer as well, because those of you that might know about La Playa and that deck down there, sometimes they've got so full that they'd put a few little table and chairs just to the side in the sand there. Well, apparently they're now able to extend it a little bit further up the beach. I'm not sure if they're allowed to go further into the ocean or not. I don't know if that's a good idea either, but hopefully that whole issue with La Playa's deck will be resolved soon. And those of you who love going down to that area of the beach will have that place to go and hang out as the sun sets once again, because it's a beautiful spot at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon when you don't have the heat of the day, you don't have the sun beating down on you because it's over the other side of the island. It's a beautiful time of day just to sit down there, have a couple of beers, chat with friends, and especially on that deck with the waves lapping up at the bottom of it, it's brilliant. So it's good to hear that that's now being resolved. The next bit of news is really interesting. It's about Pantai Duyung. Now, it's another one of these inside info type arrangements, direct from a source. Really, it's not like third hand. It's not like from the forums or some place where there's all these crazy conspiracy theories. No, it's direct from a person who's directly involved with these issues. They contacted me through a different channel, actually, not through Sanur Diary. So it was a bit weird how they were able to get my details, to be honest. But anyway, I got the info. Basically, the government is building a park. That's what they're doing. There were some negotiations about timing and that sort of stuff, but in the end, it came all of a sudden. People were a little bit taken aback by what happened. It's sort of what we've heard as well anyway. And the person that spoke to me did confirm that there is going to be a park built there, which is really good news. People are still a little bit suspicious about exactly what shape that park's going to take, because is it going to be really for the people? Because if it is, it's going to be brilliant. But if there's some little quirks to it that are a little bit weird, it might ruin it as well. But let's be positive. If they build a park down there, which I've been told now is confirmed, well, that's good news. Of course, we would love those restaurants to still operate as they did before, but they're not. So let's look forward, and hopefully that park will make a good impact on the area. Just on that note, I've been told that many of those restaurants have held on to their staff. I don't know how they've done it if they're not operating, but some of them are moving to different locations along the beach, and they've been able to hang on to staff, and they'll be opening up, in the near future. So not all of them are able to do that, but some of them are. So as they open back up, the ones that have been able to do it, I'll let you know, and you'll be able to visit some of your favorites again in the future. Let's do Indonesia Beyond Bali. So what we're going to talk about today is a place called Derawan. Yeah, Derawan is off the coast of Borneo, the Indonesian province of Kalimantan Timur, I think, East Kalimantan. And it's a place that is absolutely spectacular. It's an island destination. There is a chain of islands off the coast of Borneo, in the east of Borneo up there, that are just absolutely phenomenal for snorkeling and for diving. Now, some people in the diving community definitely know about it. In fact, if you go around Indonesia to some really remote places, there'll always be some foreign diver that's already found it before you and will be, have documented all the different reefs and all that sort of stuff. There are so many places like that that are pretty remote that divers are already at. Now, Derawan is one of those places. It's phenomenal. Most people go there for diving, but you can just go there for a beachside holiday as well. It's pretty remote, and there are things like turtle conservation programs. You've got like a lake full of jellyfish, a freshwater lake on a tiny island that's full of jellyfish, which is pretty phenomenal. And then you've got all those reefs around there, which are beautiful as well. And you can even just go island hopping just to see what's around. There are towns and villages on those islands, and there are hotels as well. There are some really top-class hotels because divers go there, and some of these people are willing to spend a little bit more money to have a little bit more luxury. But it's a fantastic place to go, and it sort of highlights to me that there are probably a bunch of other places that if you really want to go off the beaten track and go somewhere different in Indonesia, just look for a diving location and you can rock up there and you can get all your creature comforts like nice rooms, air conditioning, beers, good food, good accommodation, and a fairly reasonable mode of transport to get there. And that's because divers have already been there and done that and opened up the route for you. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to get there that all end up requiring you to take a boat in the end, from wherever it is that you depart from. When I went there, I caught multiple flights to get to a place called Brau, and then from there, a car and a boat, if I remember correctly. But there are a bunch of other ways you can do it as well. But basically, you need to get into Kalimantan Timur, that province there, and then get a boat, and then you'll be out into those islands. If you do a bit of research for yourself on Derawan, you will see that hotels come up on online, and they will have information about what the best way to get there is as well. If you like islands, Indonesia is just it's probably the best place in the world for tropical islands, and there's heaps of them, and they're accessible. Derawan's one of them, but there are a bunch of others as well. Check them out if you like islands. Let's talk about Indonesian food. Well, this food we're going to talk about right now is not specifically Indonesian, but the way that it's used is a little bit Indonesian. So we're going to talk today about jackfruit. I love jackfruit. Like, it's probably one of my favorite fruits, and it's so versatile as well. You'll find it in a lot of different Indonesian dishes prepared in different ways. One of my favorite ways to have it is completely like a young jackfruit, completely as it is, raw on the plate. Normally a jackfruit will come with massive big seeds in it that you've got to peel and all that sort of stuff. It's not a big deal. You peel the flesh off the seed and eat the flesh. It's beautiful. A really interesting flavour as well, like not weird, just absolutely wonderful. You don't get it heaps like in cafes and stuff, probably because it's a bit of a pain to prepare. But in the supermarkets, you can definitely get jackfruit, which has already been stripped from the fruit. It might have a seed in it or it might not, and that's great to have as it is. I also love jackfruit in a thing called cendol, which is basically es cendol in Indonesia is basically, and it's called different things around Indonesia as well, but from where I'm originally sort of learning about Indonesia was in Bandung. And in Bandung, cendol is basically made with coconut milk, palm sugar, green jellies, and then often you'll have little chopped up bits of jackfruit in there just to make it a little bit more, it has a bit more of a body to it, a little bit more of it than just one dimensional, because sometimes when you get some drinks or desserts like that, they can be just sweet, but this thing sort of, when you add those little bits of jackfruit in there, it just gives it another dimension. I love it, like I really love it. And the other way that I really enjoy jackfruit to be prepared is in a jackfruit curry. There's different ways it's prepared depending on where the person who's preparing it comes from, but there are different ones you can get from Yogyakarta or Padang and different areas of Indonesia where they'll stew young coconut into a curry, and it looks like meat. Because it's a curry, it tastes like meat, but it's not, it's a fruit. So it's like a vegetarian curry, but you wouldn't know. If it's just served up to you on a plate, you would think that's meat, but it's not. and it's absolutely delicious. You'll find it actually in Sanur at some Masakan Padang restaurants. So if you go to a Masakan Padang restaurant and you ask for jackfruit, they'll probably have it in some sort of curry. Now, the word for jackfruit in Indonesian is nangka, and you might have something like in a Masakan Padang restaurant, you might have something called gulai nangka or gulai nangka. That's a dish that you might ask for, and they might have it. They probably will. I've had it in Sanur before at Masakan Padang restaurant up on the bypass, like a few times. So I know they've got it there. But at other ones that are sort of more central as well, they probably have it as well. Gulai nangka, check it out. All right, so let's get on to the weather. The weather has been atrocious. Now, if some of you might have seen my video recently about leaving the country and having to sort out visa issues and that sort of stuff. Well, I was out of the country for a couple of weeks actually. I'm back now, but since I've been back for a week or so now, well, probably a week now, the weather's been atrocious. It's rained non-stop. Well, not non-stop, but every day it's rained. And not just a little bit, a lot. So what's happening is it's coming through in waves. It's like these bands are coming through. So it'll go and then stop. But then 15 minutes later, and some of the days, especially like yesterday, the weather was so terrible that my road out the front was flooded. I could almost not get the motorbike through. And because my road is, well, it's paved, but it's got lots of holes and bricks and stuff on the road, and they're submerged. So when you're coming along, as you hit them, you can nearly come off your bike. It's pretty dangerous. But aside from that, some of the other roads around my house were deep, really deep. Like I nearly broke down with my motorbike in one of the flooded areas. I saw someone else go through there and I thought, oh, doesn't look too bad. But when I got in, you could hear the bike was struggling. It didn't like it. And people that know about like cars and bikes and stuff, I don't know too much, but people that know that if you get a vehicle submerged like that, it can really do a lot of damage. So I did go through some of that yesterday, and that was pretty bad. There were some other areas where I had to turn around and come back because it was too deep. So the flooding was pretty bad. Most of this was west side, but some of it was east side as well, closer to the beach. Not as bad as it has been in previous occasions, but it was still very bad. So the weather for the past week has been terrible. And if you've been here, you'll know that it really hampers what you can get up to during the day. So you have to have a plan B. What am I going to do when it rains? So if you're coming in the next few weeks, you better hope that either the weather gets better or have some plans for what you might do when it's wet. The other thing that accompanied that strong rain was strong wind. I haven't really seen that too much before in Indonesia. In Bandung, where I lived for so many years, it never really got windy and rainy at the same time. Occasionally it would, but you don't get these really strong storms, whereas I've heard that in Bali it's a little bit more likely to happen that you have wind and rain at the same time, and that's certainly been the case for the past week. When that rain comes, it comes in a big squall and it'll just belt down, and the rain will be, you know, going at 45 degrees and hitting windows rather than hitting the ground and that sort of stuff. And if you've got a house that's well, a little bit more exposed to the elements, in other words, you know, your door might have a little gap under it like that, which in Indonesia is pretty common, or you might have a gap between the hinges and the edge or something like that. If the wind's coming on an angle, it's going to come through the gap and you get wet floors. So you'll need to put towels down. Now, a good mate of mine, Mike D, who lives in Sanur, he's got like a stack of towels that he rolls up and puts out every morning if he knows it's raining. So just prepare, when that rain comes, it'll soak up all the water and he'll have to change his towels throughout the day. That's sort of pretty typical of the sort of stuff that you deal with in Indonesia that you might not deal with in like Australia. Mainly because weather is quite extreme here and buildings aren't built, they're not as enclosed and tightly fitted as you might get in Australia. There's a little bit more of an open style, getting breezes through, throw open a bunch of windows and a bunch of doors, and that they're not really as watertight as we might have in Australia. So yeah, that's pretty typical. You get other stuff happening as well when the weather's bad, like you might have a leaky roof, or it might run down the side of the water might run down the side of your windows and into your house or whatever. You've got to learn to live with it and not get too upset, because you can't have everything perfect here. I'll just pull up this graphic here. Basically, this is a graphic of what the wind situation has been like in recent times. And you can see that cyclone there down in Australia, and there's another one out to the west as well. and it's just pushing the wind up and just circling around and whipping through Bali. And I think that's what's really causing some of these extreme weather conditions. We're a long way from that cyclone, but it still does affect us in a lot of ways. And I've heard that during the wet season, that often will happen if there are cyclones down near Australia. Even though they're a long way from Bali, we are still affected by them. Let's talk about property. So this week, I'm not going to show you what the market's like at the moment. I'll just give you a brief update on what I'm doing as far as property goes. I've been looking at properties, and I have been for a long time now, looking to buy something freehold. Well, Susan will buy it. I'm not allowed to because I'm a foreigner. But yeah, we've been looking at freehold properties in Sanur, and the market is really hot at the moment. Very difficult to buy anything. There's not a lot of stock. Prices are high, and people are asking for a lot of money. I'm not sure that they're getting the prices they're asking. But I've just recently put another offer on a place. I had previously done that and it wasn't accepted, and I didn't want to negotiate too hard with that guy. This place is a little bit smaller, 1.6 aro, so it's quite a small block of land. Sort of at the lower end of my range of land size. I wanted something perhaps a little bit bigger, but this size is good too because it's cheaper. In a decent area, west side, I've put an offer on, it's been accepted. We're going through a process now of checking documents and making sure that everyone's happy with the agreement, and then we'll go to a lawyer and start the formal paperwork. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually create a video series on the process of buying the property, renovating or demolishing or whatever, and building a new house. And that's going to be a big journey. I would anticipate that might be a 2-year journey. It'll be a really stretched out journey. So there'll be a lot of content coming out about my ups and downs of buying a property, because already on that first day, there have been so many ups and downs. It's not as straightforward as you might think, especially because when you buy a place, you only do it a few times in your life and you're not really sure of the process and what's normal and what's not. You want to safeguard yourself. You want to do your due diligence as well, make sure you don't get ripped off. So that sort of, there's a lot of ups and downs in that. And so we're going through the process now. Hopefully it works. But if it doesn't, I'll let you know that it didn't work out and we'll have to look again. So that's what I'm doing. Now the process of buying land here, whether it's freehold or leasehold, and most people will, as a foreigner, will buy leasehold, the process isn't vastly different. It's very similar. So if you're looking to buy a place in Sanur, you'll be really interested when I get these videos up about my process, because you'll be able to follow some of the tips and tricks, some of the ups and downs, and avoid some of those things that we're doing wrong, and perhaps pick up some of the positives that we do to make things easier. But one thing's for sure, I'm not getting my hopes up, because if you get too excited about it and the rug gets pulled from under you, which can happen, you'll be pretty disappointed. So I'm just taking it easy, doing my due diligence, and hopefully in time, I'll have a property to talk about. So let's do some Q&A. We've got some crackers today. Chris Jellybeard asks, not sure what visa, you always talk about a visa and not a kitas, right? What visa were you exactly on? So in my previous video about me leaving Indonesia because of visa issues, I was talking about a visa. And I use the word visa interchangeably with the word permit. It's actually a technicality. When you have residency permits in Indonesia, it's actually not a visa, it's a permit. But I use the word visa because most people are more familiar with the word visa. That's all. Michelle Battle asks, moving to Bali and collect social security and pension from another state, is it possible? That might be a dumb question. Well, I don't think it's a dumb question. I think it's actually one of the best questions I've had. People are really worried about when they retire, whether they're still entitled to a state pension or social security if they're living in a different country. Now, every country has different rules, and I know some countries allow it for sure. Some countries have tight rules around it. I know Australia does. And then there are other in-between things where if you're a self-funded retiree where you have a investment fund that you've put away money for, like in Australia it's called superannuation. In America I think they call it 401k. If you've got that, a lot of the times you don't need to worry about where you're living. You can just live off your retirement funds from that. But you may not be entitled to a state pension. So if you're dirt poor and broke, it might be difficult to move to somewhere like Bali. But certainly it's something that you should look into before you make any move to somewhere like Bali. Wormwood6424 asks, is it as hot as Thailand? Good question. Thailand is really hot. Like miles hotter than Bali is. So in the summer in Thailand, especially if you go up north to Chiang Mai or something like that, 44, 45 degrees is pretty normal in the hot season there. I think they have 3 seasons. I think it's hot, dry, cold or something like that. No, it'd be hot, wet and dry, I don't know. It's something like 3 seasons. And when it's cold there, it's pretty cool. Like if you're riding a motorbike and going pretty fast in Chiang Mai in the cold season, like you need maybe 3-4 layers of clothing, gloves and everything like that because it's freezing cold. Freezing cold. So much colder than almost anywhere in Bali. But in the hot season in somewhere like Chiang Mai, it is boiling like one of the hottest places on earth. So Thailand's a lot more variable. And if you were thinking about living between Thailand and Bali, you'd probably try and choose the best season in Bali and then the best season in Thailand and try and just migrate between them. I've actually met a few people who've done that before, and they seem to like the cooler season in Chiang Mai, and then when they get to Bali, it's already changing from the hot season in Bali to the cool season in Bali. And the cool season in Bali is not even cool, but it's noticeably cooler than December, January. June, July, August, even into September. Temperatures are pretty good in Bali. They're not cool, but they're nothing like the Christmas period. So yeah, good question. John Chalice 3195 asks, looks excellent. What currency do they prefer in Sanur? Thanks in advance. Well, it's not about preference. Well, it is about preference, but it's about the law as well. In Indonesia, you're not allowed to charge people in foreign currencies. Like you can't put an advertisement up and say, oh, this costs $30 US, and then accept US currency. You're not allowed to do it. Now, some people do it, but basically, Indonesian rupiah is the currency that everyone uses. It's common. Like if you tap your phone on the electronic payment system, it'll be done in rupiah. Yeah, it's not like, if you go to somewhere like Ecuador, or Panama, they're charging you in US dollars for everything, unless you go to a really local place. It's not like that in Indonesia. Everything's rupiah. They have a pretty strong currency. They're pretty confident in their currency, and it's a trusted currency. So yeah, don't worry about having to transfer money into an Indonesian account or having to go to a money changer and that sort of stuff, because the conversion is a fair conversion. Even somewhere like Burma, I'm not sure if it's still like that, but when I went to Burma last time, there's a black market rate and an official rate, and the black market rate is always better than the official rate, but it's not like that in Indonesia. So yeah, use Indonesian rupiah. That's the currency that's preferred, and it's the legal currency. And lastly, we have Alan Mitchell 9062. Have you changed your name? No, I haven't changed my name. Name's still Adam. Always has been Adam. There has been some confusion over the past couple of months about who's who in the vlogging scene or the YouTuber scene here in Indonesia or Bali, Sanur. But I've always been Sanur Diaries. I'm Adam from Sanur Diaries. So yeah, if I look like some other people, so be it. I'll cop it on the chin. I don't mind. If you confuse me with someone else, like if I'm walking down the beach path and you come up to me and say, "Hey, Richard," I'm not going to be offended. I'll just say I'm not Richard. I'm Adam, and then you'll get embarrassed, and I'll have a bit of an uncomfortable laugh, and then everything will be okay. So yeah, I'm Adam. So yeah, don't worry if you confuse me with someone else. That's just life. And that just about wraps up another episode of Sanur Sessions, where we talk about all things Sanur. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love sharing this information about Sanur. I hope you're as passionate about Sanur as I am. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all things Sanur. I'll catch you next time.